My parents always said they were raising me to be strong, independent, a leader. Not like my younger brother, who they claimed was still finding himself. It sounded noble until you realized what it actually meant. I was the fallback plan, the extra set of hands, the emotional punching bag with good grades. He was the golden child with a new iPad and no bedtime. We grew up in a modest house outside San Antonio, Texas. Working-class neighborhood, low fences, cicadas buzzing in the summer, and church bells on Sunday morning. The kind of place where everyone knew when someone's sprinkler broke or whose son got suspended for skipping school. My parents were immigrants, my dad a mechanic, my mom a nursing assistant. Proud, hardworking people. But somewhere along the way, that pride turned into pressure, and that pressure, when it cracked, always landed on me. I'm Eli. 22 now, but this story starts a few years back. Back when I thought loyalty meant letting yourself get stepped on because that's what good sons do. I was 17, working at a local grocery store 3 nights a week, saving every penny. My dream was to go to college first in the family to do it. I didn't have big illusions, no Ivy League, no secret legacy admissions. I wanted the University of Texas at Austin, maybe graphic design or something. Digital I could build from scratch. A place where no one called me the other kid. Just Eli. My brother David was 2 years younger, but somehow always got treated like he was 10. If I brought home a B+, I got the talk. If he cursed out a teacher, he got pizza on the way home. One time, I paid for my own birthday cake because we want to teach you financial responsibility. 2 months later, David's birthday party had a bouncy house, a cake that probably cost more than my monthly paychecks, and a new PS5 he didn't even ask for. He told me afterward I didn't even want this one. I was hoping for a VR headset. I didn't say anything. Just smiled, cleaned up the plates, and went back to stocking shelves that night. The one thing I had, the one thing no one could take was my PC. I'd built it myself. Took me nearly 8 months of overtime and skipped lunches. Every part I picked with the care of a surgeon, liquid-cooled GPU dual SSDs. A mechanical keyboard I polished like a trophy. It wasn't just a gaming rig, it was my future. I edited short films, designed logos for side cash, coded a little on the weekends. That PC was the first thing I built in my life that felt like mine. Until it wasn't. One Friday I came home from school, dropped my backpack by the door, walked into my room, and stopped cold. Desk empty. Monitor gone. My chair was still spinning like someone had just left in a rush. I remember walking in slow motion like my legs didn't believe what I was seeing. I thought we'd been robbed. I checked the closet, the hallway. Nothing else touched. My mom was folding laundry in the living room like it was any other day. I asked her, "Mom, where's my computer?" She didn't look up, just said we sold it. My ears rang. What? You were spending too much time on it. It was becoming a distraction. My dad chimed in from the kitchen, nodding like it made sense. Too much screen time. We did it for your own good. David walked in 2 minutes later holding a brand new iPhone. Grinning. "You see this camera? Shoots in 4K. He flicked it in my face like a toy commercial. I stared at the phone, then at him. "Where'd you get that?" Mom answered for him. "He needs it for school." School. David hadn't attended a full week in months. His homework consisted of TikToks in the mirror with hashtags like #grindset and #trending. That was the day I started keeping a notebook, a real one. I titled the first page Receipts. It wasn't just about the money. It was everything they'd taken and wrapped in a lesson about how I was the lucky one. Every skipped celebration, every time they said, "You'll understand when you're older." Every dollar I handed over for groceries while David slept in until noon and told me he was an entrepreneur. And then came the last straw. Senior year. I'd been accepted to UT Austin with a partial scholarship. I needed about $19,000 more to cover tuition and housing. That was what my grandfather had left for me. He'd passed away when I was in 10th grade, a quiet man who drank instant coffee, listened to old jazz, and never said much unless it mattered. Before he died, he pulled me aside and said, "I've set something up for you. For school. Don't let anyone take that from you." He wasn't kidding. He left me a custodial account under the UTMA Act. About $47,000 in it, just enough to get me through school, and then some. I never touched it. Not once. I worked, I saved, I played by the rules. 3 weeks before I was supposed to move to Austin, I sat down with my dad at the kitchen table. Had the bank info pulled up, housing deposit page ready. I said, "Can we go to the bank together? I need to make the transfer." He paused. Too long, like he was waiting for a script he forgot to rehearse. Then he said, "Oh, about that." My stomach turned. Mom stopped washing dishes, went silent. David walked in, keys swinging. "Thanks for the truck, Dad," he shouted. "Drives like a spaceship." I froze. A brand new Ford F-150 sat outside, still had the dealer plate. I looked at my dad. "You bought him a truck? With my college fund?" He didn't blink. "He needs it for work." David didn't have a job. I said nothing, just stood there. I wasn't even angry, just hollow. That night, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I packed a bag, left a note on the counter, walked out the front door, and didn't look back. I didn't know where I was going, only who I had to see. Uncle Ron. And that's when everything started to shift. Uncle Ron lived about 40 minutes outside town just past the railroad tracks in a rusted billboard for a shuttered diner. His place sat on a sloped piece of land where the grass always looked half-mowed and the wind never really stopped blowing. He was the kind of man you didn't fully understand until you needed him. Former Army mechanic, ran his own auto shop, drank black coffee like water, and only spoke when silence wasn't doing the job. I hadn't seen him in over a year, but when I knocked on his front door at 9:30 p.m., backpack slung over my shoulder and no clue what came next, he didn't ask questions. Just opened the door, looked me up and down, and said, "You staying or just passing through?" I said, "I need a place." He stepped aside like it was already decided. His house smelled like sawdust, diesel, and something faintly sweet like cornbread. The living room was stacked with car manuals, a dog bed the size of a twin mattress, and a golden retriever named Daisy who barked once before flopping back down with a groan. I slept on the pull-out couch that first night, staring at the ceiling fan creaking in slow circles. My hands were still shaking. I wasn't sure if it was rage grief or adrenaline, but my body didn't know how to rest yet. All I could think about was the truck. The truck sitting in my old driveway like it belonged there, like it hadn't devoured the one chance I had at escaping. Next morning, Ron didn't ask questions. Just slid a mug of burnt coffee across the counter and waited. I told him everything. From the first time my PC disappeared to the night I found out my college fund now had four-wheel drive. He didn't interrupt once, just nodded like he was tallying points in his head. When I was done, he opened a metal filing cabinet tucked between a gun safe and a stack of engine filters. He pulled out a worn brown folder, flipped through a few pages, and handed it over. My name was on it. Clear as day. "Your grandfather didn't trust your dad," he said. "That's why he put me on the account when you were a minor. UTMA, custodial, funds only for your benefit, school health, that kind of thing." His finger tapped the statement. "A truck for your brother doesn't qualify." My throat went dry. For a second I couldn't speak. I'd spent years swallowing every slight ever you'll understand when you're older. But this was proof. Real, legal, undeniable. "They stole it," I said. "They did," Ron replied. "But we can get it back." By noon, he had me sitting in a cracked leather chair across from a man named Carl Baxter. Baxter's office looked like someone had tried to open a law firm inside a used bookstore. Shelves of dusty binders, a pot of stale coffee burning on a hot plate, and an air conditioner that wheezed like it had asthma. But the man knew his stuff. He scanned the paperwork, adjusted his glasses, and said, "We have a case." That simple. He didn't smile, didn't sugarcoat. Just explained the basics. Misappropriation of custodial funds, violation of UTMA terms, breach of fiduciary duty. He said the court wouldn't care if it was family. The law's the law. Ron paid the retainer on the spot. By Friday, Baxter had filed the complaint. My parents were served the following week. I didn't call them, didn't answer texts. The silence was heavier than I expected, but it was clean, like stepping out of a smoke-filled room. Then the messages started. First from Mom, half apology, half guilt trip. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you'd understand. No mention of the fund. No real apology, just sorrow that I felt betrayed." Then came Dad's voicemail. "I wasn't raised this way. Family doesn't sue family." Then the cousins chimed in. "You're tearing the family apart," one of them said. "It was just a misunderstanding," another wrote. But none of them knew the money was mine. Legally mine. I told Aunt Julia, my mom's sister, when she called crying. She went quiet. Whispered, "They never told us that part." I asked if she thought I should drop the case now. She said, "I don't know anymore." Ron told me to write down every name. "Trust me," he said. "Later you'll need to know who picked what side." The first hearing wasn't dramatic. No shouting match. Just documents, dates, and numbers. My parents showed up looking tired, like life had started eating them from the inside. My mom wore her church coat. My dad didn't even bother shaving. David wasn't there, too busy posting motivational quotes from the truck, I guessed. They didn't bring a lawyer. Told the judge they thought they were allowed to use the funds for family needs. The judge didn't even blink. The UTMA account was specific, he said. Funds must benefit the minor. Period. When the dealership receipts came out, it was over. The judge froze their assets related to the account and issued a restitution order. 90 days to pay back as much as they could. No appeals. Outside the courthouse, Ron lit a cigarette. Good. Now let's get your ass back in school. I couldn't afford UT Austin anymore, but Ron helped me apply for late admission at San Antonio State. I got in. Baxter helped me land a financial disruption grant. I moved into the apartment above Ron's garage. It was small, bare drywall, a window facing a junkyard, a mini fridge that rattled like a tambourine. But it was mine. Ron didn't charge rent, said I could pay him back working Saturdays at the shop. So I did. Every weekend, 6 a.m. sharp. Changing tires, mopping floors, checking oil, hands covered in grease by noon, mind racing with code and design ideas by night. I rebuilt my PC from spare parts left behind in the office closet. Not as sleek as the old one, but fast enough to freelance. I took side gigs, logos, websites, video edits, whatever paid. I slept on a mattress on the floor, ate tuna straight from the can, and reminded myself this was temporary. The grind wasn't punishment, it was freedom in disguise. David's truck got repossessed 2 months later. Insurance lapsed. He blew through a stop sign, smashed the front end. The dealership hit my dad with a collection letter. Ron taped it to the fridge like it was a trophy. The letters kept coming, my parents begging for a chance to explain. Then came the threats, then the silence. Jack, my cousin from Denver, was the only one who kept checking in. Short texts. You good, need anything? He didn't pry, just made sure I was still standing. Then one night, while I was scrubbing brake dust off my palms, Ron tossed me a manila envelope. You're getting better at this, he said. Inside $200 in cash. First paycheck. Don't spend it on something stupid, he added. Like a truck. I laughed for the first time in weeks. I didn't know it then, but the storm was only getting started. Because families don't go down quietly, and my parents were just getting desperate enough to get dangerous. The thing about winning is that people think it ends the story. That once justice is served, the credits roll and everyone hugs. But they don't tell you what happens after the silence, the waiting, the ways. People twist the truth to make themselves feel better. My parents didn't take the court loss quietly. No apology, no responsibility, just a campaign. First came the whispers, family group chats lit up with half-truths, little edits to the story like Eli sued us over a misunderstanding or it was just a loan and he turned on us. Then they turned it outward. I found out through a classmate of all people. Some girl I barely knew from my community college business writing class leaned over and said, "Hey, your family's GoFundMe is trending." I blinked. What? She showed me her phone. There it was front and center, a page titled Healing Our Family, a Second Chance. There was a picture of my mom with her hand over her heart, my dad in the background looking solemn. The story underneath was full of half facts and soft lies, how they were devastated by legal misunderstandings, how they were struggling to keep their home, how their oldest son had chosen a different path, and we pray he finds peace. It got shared. A lot. Friends from high school reposted it. Neighbors who hadn't seen me in years. Even people from church chipped in thinking that they were saving some poor broken family from the edge. $12,000 in donations in 2 weeks. I felt like I was watching a rerun of my own trauma, but now with filters, violins, and a donate button. Ron read the whole page silently, jaw clenched. He didn't say a word, just walked outside and threw a wrench across the yard. The clang echoed like thunder. A week later, someone tagged me in a video. A TikTok. Of course, my brother David standing in front of the now empty driveway, eyes glassy, saying how much he missed his truck, but understood that sometimes life is unfair. He didn't mention the accident. Didn't mention the fact that the truck was bought with money that never belonged to him. Instead, he framed it like I'd somehow torn our family apart out of spite. The comments were flooded with crying emojis and hashtags like #FamilyFirst and forgive and heal. People were writing, he should just talk to his parents. Life's too short. No one asked what really happened. They never do. I didn't respond. Not directly. Instead, I poured everything into work. Every hour I wasn't in class or under a car hood, I was freelancing. I renamed my design page Outlier Studio, a nod to what I was an outlier in my own bloodline. I built logos for local bakeries, coffee shops, nonprofits. The work wasn't flashy, but it was clean, purposeful. And it paid enough to upgrade my rig and stash away some savings, but I still felt like I was holding my breath, like something was about to crack. That's when I met Diane. Ron introduced us one evening after work. "This is Diane," he said. "She's got something for you." She ran a local cafe downtown called Second Bloom. Place was small but warm, all reclaimed wood and hanging succulents. The kind of shop that sold espresso with poems written on the cup sleeves. Diane wasn't what I expected, mid-40s, buzz-cut combat boots and the kind of smile that could slice glass. She'd heard about my situation from Ron, apparently. You know, she said, sliding me a laptop over a chipped counter, families break for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it's the most loving thing they ever do. She offered me a space, half consulting, half charity. Said she needed branding help for her cafe and her nonprofit, which trained formerly incarcerated women in hospitality and tech. You'd be designing second chances, she said. I took the offer. Part-time hours, full creative control. She didn't hover. Just let me build. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be trusted without needing to prove myself. And then just as things were stabilizing, the call came. It was Jack, my cousin from Denver. He never called, only texted. Hey, he said. Don't freak out. But your parents are filing something. They're trying to reverse the restitution. Claiming you misled the court. My stomach dropped. What? On what grounds? He hesitated. Said you pressured your grandfather. That he wasn't of sound mind. That you forged stuff. I could barely hear him over the blood pounding in my ears. They're accusing me of fraud. Ron slammed the brakes on his truck when I told him. Hell no. Not on my watch. He pulled the original notarized letters from his safe documents Grandpa had signed years before Crystal Clear. He called Baxter that night. We were looking at a full hearing, again. But this time the stakes were higher. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. Now they were going after my name. The thing about being accused of something you didn't do, especially by people who raised you, isn't the shock. It's the betrayal hiding inside the lie. My parents knew who I was. They knew my grandfather trusted me. That every document, every signature, every bank record was clean and legal. But truth doesn't matter much when pride is on the line. And theirs, it was bleeding all over the internet. Baxter called me the morning after Jack warned us. They filed a motion, he said, already annoyed, claiming elder coercion. They're asking the court to invalidate the UTMA restitution and launch an investigation into your financial conduct. I felt my stomach drop into my knees. They're trying to make me look like a thief. They're trying to make you look like a manipulator, he corrected. It's strategic. They know they already lost once. This is scorched earth. Ron slammed his wrench on the garage floor. You don't get to raise a kid like a damn work mule and then accuse him of forgery because he finally stood up. For the next 2 weeks, everything paused. Classes, freelance gigs, even sleep. I gathered every file, every receipt, every email Grandpa had ever sent me. I met with Baxter 3 times a week, sometimes more. Diane offered her cafe after hours so we could use the back room as a quiet place to prep. She even brewed a pot of her strongest coffee, said it was for moral warfare. I couldn't tell if she was joking. The new hearing was scheduled for early May. The timing hit like a sick joke. It was the exact same week my original UT Austin move-in was supposed to happen the year before. That was the part no one really knew how time could echo like an old wound pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. We showed up to court that morning, folder in hand, nerves shot to hell. My parents were already there, flanked by a new lawyer, some guy in a shiny blue suit and teeth, too perfect to be trusted. Mom wouldn't look at me. Dad stared straight ahead like I wasn't real. But David, he had the audacity to smirk, like this was a game and he was about to win the final round. That smug little look almost broke me. But Diane squeezed my shoulder before I sat down, just once, just enough. The hearing was brutal. Their lawyer made it sound like I'd cornered my grandfather on his deathbed and demanded control of his money. He even pulled out old photos Grandpa in a hospital gown smiling weakly and tried to paint them as proof of vulnerability. I wanted to scream, but Baxter was calm. He walked through the timeline like a surgeon, clean, exact, irrefutable. He introduced the notarized letter Grandpa had signed 3 years prior, brought in the bank officer who'd handled the UTMA transfer, played voicemail clips of Grandpa thanking me for holding down the fort. Then came the bombshell Ron testified. Calm, direct voice like gravel. He told the court that Grandpa had warned him explicitly, that he'd said if Scott ever touches that money, it's theft. Period. Ron even had a dated email from Grandpa backing it up. The room went silent. I looked at my mom then. Her face, it cracked. Just a flicker. But it was there. Regret, fear, maybe even shame. For a split second, I thought she might stand up and stop it, call it off, say she was sorry, but she didn't. The judge didn't even take the full session. She dismissed their motion, ruled the original restitution valid, and ordered my parents to pay for all legal fees involved in the false accusation. When she said the words with prejudice, it felt like someone untied a knot that had been sitting in my chest for a year. After the hearing, I stepped outside into the sun, blinking like I hadn't seen daylight in weeks. Baxter shook my hand. Diane hugged me. Ron lit a cigarette and said, "Next time they try something, we countersue for defamation." I believed him. I thought it was over. I wanted it to be over. And for a few weeks it was. I went back to work. Outlier Studio picked up more clients. A local bookstore hired me to redesign their entire online presence. Diane introduced me to a community center that needed digital storytelling for underrepresented youth. My schedule was packed. My bank balance slowly crawling out of the red. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was building something. Then I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short, my father's voice low, calm, too calm. He said, "You think you've won. But this story isn't over. And we're not done with you." At first I tried to ignore it. That voicemail from my father, calm, deliberate, threatening in a way that didn't raise legal red flags, but sent chills anyway, sat in my inbox like a ticking clock. I didn't reply. Didn't tell Ron or Diane either. I convinced myself it was just a bluff. But I underestimated the desperation of people who'd rather burn everything down than admit they lost. 2 weeks later, Outlier Studios' Instagram page got flagged for suspicious content. Then my PayPal account was frozen due to a report of unauthorized business activity. A freelance client emailed to cancel a contract saying they weren't comfortable being associated with someone in the middle of a family legal scandal. That word scandal made my skin crawl. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was something deeper. Someone was poisoning the well. I checked Reddit, Facebook, even TikTok. And there it was, a series of anonymous posts, threads on local community pages, videos with blurry captions like, "The truth about Eli from San Antonio," and "When your own blood turns on you for clout." None of it had my name directly, but the breadcrumbs were clear. Grainy photos from court, a screenshot of the GoFundMe, a short video of me leaving the courthouse stitched next to a shot of my dad in tears. Manufactured victimhood at its finest. I felt like I was being erased in real time. Ron wasn't surprised. That voicemail was a warning shot, he said, slamming his fist on the counter. "And you didn't take cover." He was pissed at me at the whole damn situation. But mostly I think he was scared. Diane was more measured. "They're playing the long game now," she said. "Social death is cheaper than court fees." She offered to connect me with someone she trusted, a woman named Jules who used to work in PR but now ran digital cleanup campaigns for abuse survivors and wrongly accused clients. We met in her office above a bike shop in Southtown. She looked me up and down like she was reading my search history. "You waited too long," she said, "but we can still fix this if you're willing to tell your side." I hesitated. "You mean go public?" She nodded. "Control the narrative, before they finish rewriting it for you." I wasn't sure. I'd spent years staying quiet, not defending myself, not clapping back. Because I thought if I just kept my head down and did the right thing, people would see it. Understand. But that's not how it works anymore. In a world full of noise, silence looks like guilt. So I wrote a post. Just one. I titled it, "What My Family Didn't Tell You." I told the story not in anger, but in detail. I shared the legal docs, the court ruling, the messages from GoFundMe donors who realized they'd been misled. I uploaded a short video, just me sitting in the garage loft, no filters, no editing. I talked about what it feels like to be the responsible one until that responsibility gets weaponized. About how people assume quiet means weak. About how sometimes the people who raised you are the first to dig the knife in when you stop letting them pull the strings. The post didn't go viral, but it traveled. Friends reshared it. Old classmates messaged to apologize. The freelance client who ghosted me sent an email. I read everything. "I'm sorry I bailed. If you're still open, the job's yours." Jules helped manage the comments. Diane moderated messages. Ron didn't say much, just printed the post, framed it, and nailed it to the garage wall like a war medal. I thought the smoke would clear after that. But families like mine, they don't retreat. They evolve. It was a Thursday night when David showed up. I was closing the cafe. Diane had already left. I stepped outside to dump the trash, and there he was, leaning on a rented Honda arms-crossed phone in hand like a weapon. His smile wasn't real. "We need to talk," he said. I should have walked back inside, should have locked the door, but I didn't. I was tired of running. "Say what you came to say," I told him. He laughed, that lazy smirk that always made my blood boil. "You won the court thing. Fine. But you're ruining everything now. Mom can't even walk into church without getting side-eyed. Dad's shop lost half his clients. You made us look like monsters." I stared at him. "You made yourselves look like that." He stepped closer. "I'm giving you a way out. Take the post down, say it was miscommunication, we'll let it die. I shook my head. There's nothing left to kill. He exhaled hard. You always thought you were better than us. But here's the thing, you're still a nobody. Living above a garage fixing tires for cash designing logos no one will remember. You think you're winning, you're just surviving. Then he leaned in too close and whispered, "But we've got something coming. Something big. You won't see it, but it's gonna break you." I didn't blink. Is that a threat? No, he said, stepping back. It's a promise. I didn't sleep that night. David's words kept repeating like a metronome inside my head. Something big, gonna break you. It wasn't just a threat. It felt rehearsed like he'd been practicing it in the mirror for days. I tried to convince myself it was just another bluff. Empty posturing. But something about his eyes told me otherwise. The kind of look people get when they've stopped caring about consequences. The next morning I went straight to Ron. Told him everything. His face darkened, jaw tightening the way it always did when he was deciding between calling the cops or just handling things the old way. He didn't say much, just walked to the safe, pulled out a second backup drive he hadn't touched in years and handed it to me. "Keep this off Wi-Fi," he said. "Everything you've got on that family, every doc email backup encrypted." Now, he wasn't playing around. That afternoon, I got a call from Diane. Her voice was tight-clipped. "You might want to get down here." I rushed to the cafe, heart-hammering, palms sweaty. When I got there, she was holding a letter in her hand, shaking slightly. "Someone filed a complaint to the city health department," she said. "Anonymous tip. Said we were employing people without proper background checks, that our books weren't clean." My stomach dropped. "You think it's them? It's not even a question." Within 2 hours, 2 inspectors showed up. Flashlights, clipboards, polite but invasive. They went through everything, asked to see payroll logs, safety training records, even health certifications from 6 months ago. Diane kept it together, but I could tell she was barely holding back fury. "They're not just going after you anymore," she whispered. "They're attacking what you've built." What we've built. I wanted to scream. Throw something. But rage wasn't useful now. I needed to think. Strategize, because this wasn't just legal anymore. It was psychological warfare. Discredit me, then dismantle everything I'd touched. That's when Jules called. "We need to talk, in person." I met her at her office. She pulled out a laptop already open to a set of screenshots she wasn't supposed to have. A private Discord group invite only filled with names I recognized. Former church members, extended family, a couple of my old classmates. All of them coordinating. Sharing links, flagging my posts, strategizing ways to get my account suspended. One post read, "He's making money off the pain he caused. Let's hit him where it hurts his rep." I felt sick. These weren't just trolls, they were people I'd known. Babysat their kids, helped them move, donated to their fundraisers, and now they were treating me like a virus that needed to be purged. Ron's response was blunt. "Time to hit back." But Diane had a different idea. "What if you didn't just defend yourself?" she asked. "What if you used it how I asked?" "Turn the lens. Make your story public again, but this time with others like you." The idea hit hard. Not revenge, not pity. Something sharper, more permanent. I started gathering stories through Jules' network, Diane's nonprofit. Even Jack helped quietly from Denver. People who'd been ostracized, disowned, discredited by their families for stepping out of line. We called it Outcast Archive, a digital platform. Anonymous if needed. Each story verified, supported by legal docs, testimonies, timelines. Within a week we had 12 entries, then 30, then 70. The posts weren't loud. No screaming, no blame games, just clean truth. People read them, shared them. Not viral, but steady. Steady like something building, something unignorable. And that's when the real hit came. I woke up one morning to a bank notification account under review, suspicious activity detected. My freelance payout hadn't cleared. My business checking account was frozen. I called the bank immediately. The rep on the line apologized, said they'd received a formal fraud report from a third party. Someone had submitted forged invoices under my name linked to fake clients claiming I'd been laundering money through nonprofit work. I could barely breathe. "Do you believe it?" I asked. "Honestly," the rep said. "Your record's clean. But we have to investigate. It would take at least 30 days to resolve." I had rent due in 9. Jules and Baxter jumped in. Emergency affidavits, cease and desist letters. Even Diane pulled a few strings to float me through the week. But I knew this wasn't sustainable. Whoever was behind it wasn't just trying to ruin my name. They wanted to starve me out, force me to fold, make the narrative collapse under its own weight. Ron didn't mince words. "They're not done. This is coordinated. You're dealing with people who've decided they'd rather lose everything than let you live free. That night, I sat in the garage staring at my rebuilt PC. Every wire, every LED, every fan silent now. I thought about my grandfather, about the way he used to sit on the porch and hum jazz tunes that made no sense until you listened to the rhythm underneath. He once told me, "You don't fight fire with fire, Eli. You fight it by controlling the wind." I opened a blank document, titled it Final Statement, and started writing the thing that could burn the whole web of lies to the ground. Because if they wanted war, they were about to find out I'd been building my own army. The hardest part wasn't writing Final Statement. It was hitting post. Staring at that little blue button, knowing once I clicked it, there was no undoing it. No taking it back. But that's the thing about truth when it's ready, it doesn't whisper. It roars. I clicked it. The post went live at 7:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. Simple headline, the last lie they'll ever tell. I laid it all out, timeline receipts, screenshots, legal filings, text messages from David's burner number, even the edited invoices they'd submitted to the bank. Then I showed how they'd targeted not just me, but my colleagues, the nonprofit, the clients. I didn't ask for sympathy. I didn't threaten. I simply said, this is what was done, this is who did it, and this is who I am now. I signed it with my full name, and then I went to work. By 9:00 a.m., my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages from people I hadn't heard from in years, teachers, former neighbors, even strangers from Reddit who'd followed the Outcast archive quietly now speaking up. I saw it. They tried to do the same to me. You're not alone. The archive traffic doubled, then tripled. People started submitting stories not just about families, but about broken institutions, churches, schools, community boards, any place where silence had once protected the wrong people. Jules emailed. Subject line, you flipped the script. Diane printed the full post, framed it, and hung it right next to the espresso machine. Ron just grunted and said, about time. But my family didn't go quietly. That same night, my dad uploaded a video. A long, emotional monologue in their kitchen lit by nothing but a cheap floor lamp and whatever was left of his pride. He cried, begged for forgiveness, said he was a flawed man who made decisions out of fear, that he never meant to hurt anyone. The comments were filled with prayers, pity, and people asking, why won't Eli just forgive him already? I didn't respond, not directly, but I issued a final reply under my post. I forgive you, but I will never let you rewrite what happened. That was it. After that, it went quiet. Weeks passed, the fraud investigation closed, bank accounts restored. Outlier Studio gained 5 new contracts, and the Outcast archive got picked up by a digital storytelling collective. They offered funding, real funding, to turn it into a nationwide initiative. Stories in all 50 states, anonymous protection, sources, legal aid. Diane called it a home for the disinherited. I called it survival. One night I came home to find a package at my door. No label, no return address. Inside a flash drive and a note that said simply, you think you know everything? You don't. Check the final file. I hesitated. Plugged it in. Only one folder, Family Matters Confidential. I clicked it. Dozens of PDFs, screenshots, emails. Some I recognized. But others, no. These were different, older, stuff I wasn't supposed to see. One document caught my eye. It was a scanned letter. Handwritten. Dated 6 months before my grandfather died. Addressed to me. My hands shook as I read it. If you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. I tried to protect you the best I could. But Scott and Linda, your parents are not who they pretend to be. There are things buried, Eli. Real things. Not just about your fund. About why I changed my will. About your uncle. About the business. If you want the truth, you'll have to go deeper than courtrooms. Follow the paper trail. Start with the storage unit. The key is taped under my old tackle box. You know the one. I sat there stunned. I hadn't cried through any of this. Not the trial, not the defamation, not even when David stood in front of me spitting threats in the dark. But reading those lines, I broke. This wasn't just about me. It never was. I didn't sleep that night. My grandfather's letter sat like a weight on my chest, heavier than any legal judgment or smear campaign. The phrase, "it was never just about you," kept echoing. Not out of guilt, but like an invitation, a challenge. I knew the tackle box. Rusted green dented corners, paint peeling like tired skin. It had been in Ron's garage for years, stacked under old toolboxes and winter chains. At sunrise, I walked in. Ron was sipping coffee, reading the news like nothing had changed. I didn't say a word, just crouched, pulled out the old box, flipped it open, and ran my fingers underneath the lid. I felt it before I saw it duct tape crusted at the edges, and beneath that, a brass key, old and worn smooth. I looked up at Ron. "You know what this opens?" He didn't blink. I do now. The storage facility was off I-10, half an hour from town, tucked behind an abandoned gas station. Unit 41D. I opened it slowly, expecting dust and the smell of mildew. But it was organized precise like Grandpa's Sunday suits. Files binders labeled boxes. I opened one labeled tax records, 1990, 2003, and froze. Names, addresses, business licenses that didn't match the ones on file. Bank transfers from my dad's old repair shop to accounts I didn't recognize. Then came the real shock, a thick envelope labeled insurance, Ron Mitchell. I opened it. There, in my grandfather's cursive handwriting, was a notarized affidavit. A statement confirming that in 1999, Ron had been pushed out of the family business, not for failing to pull his weight like I'd always been told, but because he'd discovered that my father had been funneling profits into a dummy corporation. My father had accused him of creative differences, but really Ron had caught him laundering money through their own family. It went deeper. Letters from my mom to her sister expressing fear about Scott's deals and whether they'd be caught. A second will unsigned but dated where Grandpa had originally planned to divide the family assets 3 ways between me, Ron, and a community nonprofit. But it had never been executed. He'd been diagnosed 2 weeks later. Everything after that got buried in legal haze and silent shame. I copied everything. Every folder, every document, scanned it, backed it up on 3 separate drives, one of which I stored at Diane's office. Jules reviewed the documents and said quietly, "If we push this isn't just defamation anymore. It's wire fraud. It's tax evasion. It's decades of federal crimes." I sat with that. I had the power now not just to clear my name, but to completely dismantle my family's legacy. To expose them in a way that no sympathy video could erase. I knew what Ron would do, what Jules would recommend, but I had to ask myself, what do I want? I walked back to the cafe that night and sat across from Diane. If I go through with this, I said I erase them. Fully. No coming back. She looked at me calm and steady. Then ask yourself this, are you burning a house or planning a new one? I filed a report. Not public, not loud, quietly, through the right channels. Baxter helped frame it legally, Jules packaged the evidence, and the IRS began an internal review. I didn't announce it. I didn't need applause. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was repair. Weeks passed, then months. The nonprofit grew. Outlier Studio merged with a social impact firm in Austin, letting me work full-time while mentoring younger creatives from underrepresented backgrounds. Diane's Cafe got certified as a safe workspace for formerly incarcerated women. The Outcast Archive was officially picked up by NPR as a featured storytelling project. They called it Truth Without Permission. I never heard back from David. Last I checked, his TikTok had gone private. My mom's GoFundMe was taken down quietly one night. No apology, just vanished. My dad was under audit now. 3 federal agencies were involved. Still, I didn't celebrate. Because justice isn't a finish line. It's a reckoning you carry with you. Sometimes I visit Grandpa's grave, sit there in silence, tell him what I built, what they tried to destroy, and how in the end they failed, not because I fought harder, but because I refused to become them. And maybe that's the real inheritance. Not the money, not the fight, but the choice to break the pattern. Story 2. Last Thursday started like any other red-eye homecoming. I just landed at Bangkok Suvarnabhumi after a 40-hour audit marathon in Dubai. My brain was mush, my suit smelled like recycled cabin air, and all I wanted was a shower. While I waited for my luggage, I opened my banking app Habit, really expecting the reassuring string of 6-digit numbers I'd spent 8 years building. Instead, I saw BH027. Not a typo, not a glitch. 27 satang, less than the price of a plastic bag. I froze there among the carousel's chrome teeth, suitcase forgotten. Palm slick against the phone. 2 enormous withdrawals sat on the ledger, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, both labeled inter-family transfer. The amount matched to the down payment I'd been saving for a tiny riverfront condo. The dream that had kept me grinding spreadsheets while my friends collected passport stamps. Gone. My name is Zara Anorak, 28, senior forensic accountant, chronic listmaker, and until that moment, fiercely independent eldest daughter of Lionel and his second wife, Fiona. My half-brother Caleb, 19, and impossibly charming, is the sun around which their rebuilt universe spins. I used to orbit there too until I learned even suns cast shadows. Childhood in the margins. Mum died when I was 10. Dad coped by throwing himself into business trips and eventually into Fiona's picture-perfect Instagram life. By 12, I could cook rice 3 ways and file our household taxes. By 14, I was a live-in ghost, keeping grades high and voice low while wedding plans filled the condo. Fiona arrived with a ready smile and a toddler Caleb whose shoelaces I tied more often than my own. You're such a help, she'd coo, pressing chores into my hands like gifts. Dad called me the responsible one and focused on funding Caleb's bilingual kindergarten. My own education was financed with tutoring gigs and scholarships nobody even knew I'd won. I didn't resent Caleb. He was sweet, dimple-cheeked, always clutching my pinky for balance. But sweetness ferments when adults play favorites. As we grew, every family decision became a tribute to his potential. Summer camps. Caleb first. New laptop. Caleb needs it for coding. My requests were met with thin smiles. You of all people understand budgeting, right? So I learned to budget feelings too. Compress them, label them, shelve them. University Overseas Fund was the mental envelope where I stored every ignored birthday, every canceled visitation with Mum's family, every skipped parent-teacher night. Money, I decided, was proof of worth. If I could stack enough digits, nobody could overwrite me again. The dinner that should have warned me. 2 weeks before the airport shock, Fiona called rare enough that I held the phone like a ticking gift. She suggested a family dinner at a riverside restaurant I couldn't afford on my own salary. Dad beamed through appetizers asking about my promotion. Fiona kept refilling my glass, fluttering eyelashes steering the conversation to property prices. Caleb, now sporting designer trainers and a business management certificate he hadn't finished, announced he'd found the perfect location for a rooftop bar aimed at digital nomads. He spoke of craft gin flights and NFT-themed cocktails while Dad nodded starry-eyed. I clapped politely, ignoring the unease twisting my stomach. When Fiona asked about my future housing plans, I offered vague answers. They laughed, called me secretive. I joked back, but that tightening never left my chest. Discovery in the arrivals hall. Now staring at the drained account, every forced laugh from that dinner rearranged itself into a confession I hadn't caught. Baggage claim blurred. My phone buzzed Dad. The timing felt cosmic. I answered with a shaky Saudi Ka voice pitched between hope and dread. Pumpkin, you landed safe. He sounded bright, relieved. Good, good. Listen, small favor. Could you swing by the old shop house on Cherowen Krong after you rest? Caleb wants to show you something special. Something special. The words rang like a bell announcing last orders. I swallowed rage. Sure, Dad. See you tonight. I hung up before anger cracked my composure and turned to find my suitcase circling alone, patient as ever. A plan forms between heartbeats. On the airport rail, I force myself to breathe and think like an auditor, not a daughter. Step 1, regain access. Step 2, trace the transfer path. Step 3, confront only when evidence is airtight, never give manipulators room to spin. At home, I powered through jet lag like a caffeine deity. 2 hours, 3 monitors, dozens of transaction IDs. Later, the picture sharpened. Dad was secondary signatory on my emergency savings account, an antiquated form we'd signed when I was 17 in case you're ever unconscious, sweetheart. I'd forgotten to remove him. Fiona had contacted the bank while I was mid-flight claiming urgent medical expenses. Dad authorized funds vanished into a shell company registered 6 days ago. Nomad Nest Ventures director Caleb R. Anorak. My pulse hammered, but underneath anger there was something colder clarity. They hadn't just stolen money. They'd stolen the years I traded for that money, and they expected gratitude for letting me in on the surprise. Toward the showdown. By sunset, I had printed statements, notarized copies, and a concise timeline. I slid them into Mum's old leather folio, the same one she carried through courtrooms before cancer paused her career forever. Then I dressed in neutral tones hair in a precise bun, face unreadable. Accountants are invisible until they present the bill. As Grab whisked me toward the historic district neon smeared across taxi windows like cheap lipstick. I rehearsed calm sentences trimmed of apology fattened on facts. I pictured their faces, how they'd stutter, deflect, maybe even cry. I let the future play out, then tucked the vision away. First, I needed to see the bar, my bar, if you calculated honestly. The driver turned down an alley strung with fairy lights. There it was, a 3-story colonial terrace, freshly painted midnight blue windows glowing amber. Nomad Nest Rooftop. The sign still wrapped in ribbon stood where my down payment should have lived. Music drifted from above and Caleb's laugh, unmistakable, carefree, floated down the stairwell. My heartbeat steadied. I paid the driver, squared my shoulders, and stepped into the building I unknowingly bought. I pushed through the ground floor doors and straight into a perfume cloud of lemongrass liquor and fresh paint. Bamboo lanterns threw honey gold circles over silk cushions, while a DJ tested a lo-fi playlist that sounded like it had been downloaded for influencers and algorithms, not humans. Half-finished neon tubing spelled Nomad Nest Grand Opening above the stairs. My stolen dream looked gorgeous, like a thief who had taken time to iron my clothes before wearing them. Fiona fluttered down the steps, first bangles chiming arms wide as if she were greeting a beloved donor. Surprise! We wanted you to see Caleb's vision before anyone else. Dad followed, cheeks flushed with father of the entrepreneur pride. Behind him came Caleb in a linen shirt, one shade too white, flanked by 2 new faces. I'm a 26, the operations manager with tattoos of koi fish, whispering up her arms, and Vit 35, a sharp-eyed silent partner whose suit looked borrowed from a gangster film and perfectly tailored anyway. I smiled the way I do at hostile auditors, tight, polite, lethal. Vision is lovely. Whose money powered it? My voice sliced through the clinking glasses. Caleb spread his hands. Sis, think bigger picture. A family asset benefits everyone. He tried the grin that once got him out of detention, but I had already outgrown that spell. Before they could steer me to the rooftop tour, I laid Mum's leather folio on the bar. One precise motion, like dealing a card no one wanted to see. Fiona's laughter thinned. Dad's forehead creased. I opened page 1, certified statements, highlighted withdrawals. Shell company registry with Caleb's signature in blue ink. The music seemed to duck for cover. Pumpkin, we were going to explain, Dad began tone soft as tissue. It's a temporary reallocation, Fiona added. The returns will dwarf the principal. I fixed on Dad. His tie knot suddenly looked too tight. You were once the trustee of my future. Instead, you co-signed daylight robbery. That's not reallocating, that's embezzling. Vit cleared his throat, finally speaking. The capital is already locked. If you create noise, the launch dies and nobody recovers a bot. His calm hinted at back-alley contracts. Lila stepped forward, surprising me. Ms. Zara, I saw the transfer memos this morning. They didn't match projected cash flow. I asked Caleb, he shrugged. Her voice carried quiet defiance. A first ally appearing like a rope in rising water. Caleb shot her a glare meant to burn. He turned back to me, charm evacuated. All right, you want numbers? Take 10% equity, we'll call it even. He spoke as if offering a dog a chew toy. I let silence stretch until everyone leaned over the edge of it. Then I said, you stole 100%. You will return 120 principal plus liquidated damages for the condo deal I lost. 48 hours. After that, I file a criminal complaint and freeze the venue. I slid a second document across an injunction request drafted by Jirawat Chan. 30, my colleague from compliance, who owed me a dozen favors and liked collecting high-profile victories. His letterhead gleamed like a silver bullet. Dad's voice cracked. Zara, this could ruin your brother's life. I met his eyes, felt a decade of suppressed abandonment flare, but hold steady. He cast the first ruin. Fiona reached for indignation, but found only air. Vit assessed me with cool respect, calculating if intimidation still had a chance. He seemed to decide it did not. Caleb's jaw worked, words jammed behind pride. I turned to Lila. Inventory sheets, supplier contracts, staff payroll, secure digital copies tonight, and send to me. Whistleblower protections apply once the injunction lands. She nodded, coy tails rippling. Another rope tightened in my hand. I collected the folio, tucked it under my arm, and addressed the room. Congratulations on the soft opening. Enjoy the sunset. The next one may be viewed through courtroom windows. Then I walked away heels, measuring out the seconds they had left. On the pavement, the city heat wrapped me like a fever. Dad called after me once, Pumpkin, but the word no longer belonged to either of us. I kept walking until the mix of incense and exhaust signaled Yalwarat Road, where Jirawat leaned against a noodle cart waving 2 iced limes. Figured you'd need electrolytes. I took the cup, hands finally trembling now that the performance was over. He scanned my face. They'll settle. But draft plan B anyway, asset freeze forms police brief media packet. If they test you, make them regret the exam. I managed a tired laugh. Thank you for being my ugly option. Anytime, he said, tapping his cup to mine. Ugly wins more than pretty when pretty cheats. As night thickened, I replayed the confrontation looking for cracks. Did I give them too much time? Could Vit hide funds offshore before 48 hours expired? A motorcycle roared past its taillight a red comet, and the thought hit funds might already be moving. Fear tried to plant itself, but I yanked it up by the roots. Tomorrow I would request immediate account monitoring orders. Lila's files would map every leak. Caleb had opened a war chest with my key. Now I owned the battlefield knowledge. I rode a tuk-tuk home Bangkok neon smearing into abstract art. Above sky lanterns from some festival drifted like silent witnesses. Mum used to say lanterns carried prayers higher than our throats could reach. I whispered one anyway. May truth weigh more than blood tonight. The driver dropped me at my apartment. As I climbed the stairs, phone buzzing with Girawat's draft emails, I felt the ground beneath my life reorganizing fault lines visible. But finally mined a chart. Dawn crept in like diluted ink, and with it came the first counterstrike. At 0614, a text popped up from an unknown number. You push, we bury your career. V. The threat was primitive, yet enough to jolt me upright. I forwarded it to Girawat, added, still playing nice. He replied 1 minute later, no emojis. File logged. Keep every scrap. Caffeine became armor. While the kettle rattled, Lila's email arrived. She had worked all night naming each file so precisely that even a hungover intern could navigate the mess. Purchase orders inflated by 30%, bartending staff ghost-registered supplier invoices routed through a Delaware entity. Nomad Nest was a Russian doll of small frauds nesting inside my giant one. I dropped everything into an encrypted drive and built a flowchart until red arrows crisscrossed like warplanes. At 9, I met Dr. Pranaya Kool, 42, reputational risk expert and ex-journalist who owed me from a whistleblower workshop. Over iced Americanos at an outdoor cafe, she studied the doc's lips pursed. Vit Sarakul used to wash money for nightclub chains busted on trafficking charges. He slides when the white spotlight flickers. You found the fuse box. She suggested preemptive exposure leak a sanitized packet to credible press before Vit could spin. Public sunlight, quick and clean. I hesitated. Dad might drown in that glare. Dr. Kool tilted her head. Truth isn't a grenade you threw. They pulled the pin. Her words lodged behind my ribs. Noon brought a scheduled board meeting at my firm. I briefed managing partner Somchai in private, declaring potential conflict of interest. He read the summary, whistled. You want unpaid leave to sue your family. I want air between our company and their fallout, I said. He slapped the folder shut. Take the week. Do it thoroughly, keep blood off our lobby. Respect disguised as cynicism? I'd take it. Back outside Bangkok heat felt juiced by a grudge. I caught a moto taxi to the civil court annex, filed asset freeze motions ahead of schedule, and walked out lighter than I had in months. Halfway down the steps, my phone rang. Dad. I inhaled, answered. Pump Zara. His voice was raw, stripped of ceremony. Come home. Tonight. No lawyers. I pictured our old dining table, each scratch a memory. Only if Caleb, Fiona, and Vit are present. Neutral location. You pick. Silence, then. Your mother's house in Bang Krachao. 1900 hours. A jab of nostalgia. Mum's stilt house had been rented out since her passing. Meeting there felt like an omen. I agreed. Afternoon became logistics. I pinged Lila to keep ears open. She texted a single word back, understood. Girawat arranged a plainclothes officer to sit 2 houses down from the rendezvous. Discreet eyes, nothing more. Dr. Kool prepared a brief for an investigative podcaster with 3 million listeners embargoed till dawn next day. The chessboard grew crowded, but every piece served one aim, reclaim what was mine. Sunset painted the Chao Phraya bronze as I rode a long-tail boat to Bang Krachao. Cicadas screeched like faulty alarms while the engine spat oil into wake. Mum's old house emerged between palm fronds, still teal, still stubbornly proud. A black SUV already waited. Vit leaned against it, smoking. Caleb paced near the gate phone, glued to ear, arrogance fraying at the seams. Fiona stood further back, stilettos useless in the soft earth. Dad lingered on the porch, hunched and older than yesterday. I stepped onto the deck first, forcing them to follow my tempo. Inside the living room smelled of dust and sandalwood. The walls hung with Mum's courtroom diplomas achievements neither stepmother nor half-brother could fake. Dad gestured toward a low table. No refreshments, no small talk. Good. The money is gone, Caleb blurted before anyone sat. Vit transferred out this morning, trying to shield us, but the bank flagged it and froze the wire. Now nothing moves. He threw a glare at Vit, which bounced off bulletproof composure. Fiona's mascara had smudged. She looked like an actress after a rain scene. I unfolded my chair slowly. Thank you for volunteering your confession. Saves paperwork. Vit flicked ash into an empty planner. Confession. The funds originated as a family loan. Prove criminal intent. His indifference chilled the room. I opened the folder again, new pages, time-stamped texts, dummy vendor lists, Lila's keystroke logs. I placed each sheet like a hammer onto glass. Intent established. Fraud conspiracy, money laundering. 3 crimes buying each of you a matching suit. Fiona's breath hitched. Dad squeezed the bridge of his nose. Then I played the card I'd kept hidden even from Girawat Mum's last will recently located through a probate check I'd initiated after Part 2's showdown. Buried in a safety deposit box, it bequeathed her entire estate, this very house, a modest stock portfolio, and the intellectual property royalties from her legal textbooks to me alone. A clause added, any child of Lionel born after my passing shall share in these assets only at Zara's discretion. The document's seal gleamed under the lamp. Caleb's face drained. Fiona stammered, that's forged. I slid over the probate officer's certification dated 2 weeks earlier. Vit peered, exhaled smoke. Dad didn't look, he already knew the signature. I leaned forward. Here's the new deal. Full restitution plus 25% penalties wired to my escrow by 1800 tomorrow. Public apology drafted by me, signed by each of you, published on the bar's socials within the same hour. You resign from Nomad Nest. Lila becomes interim director. I might license the brand back to her if she keeps it clean. In return, I suspend criminal filings and impose no inheritance freeze under Mum's will. Decline and I let justice run its unfiltered course. The room swallowed sound. Outside, a gecko chirped twice. Dad finally met my eyes, tears unshed. I failed you. Simple and almost enough. Almost. Vit stubbed out his cigarette. We'll comply. No argument, no bluster, just survival instinct. Caleb opened his mouth to protest, but Fiona laid a hand on his arm, nails trembling. I stood. I'll expect confirmation emails tonight. Good evening. As I turned, Dad's voice rose once more fragile. Will you ever forgive me? I paused at the doorway. Memories roaring like surf-forgotten birthdays, empty auditorium seats, today's betrayal. Forgiveness is a ledger, Dad. Balance it. I stepped into the humid dark where the plainclothes officer pretended to fix his bike. My boatman waited. The river carried me away, city lights flaring like fresh ink across black water. Behind me, Mum's house receded, but for the first time since childhood, I felt its doors closing on justice, not abandonment. Night wind salted my lips. I checked my phone. Girawat's message lit the screen, bank confirmed freeze. They're cornered. Lila's followed staff on board, ready to rebuild. And Dr. Cool podcast scheduled 07 Azura if needed. Pull plug by 06 if they pay. 3 lifelines braided tight. I leaned back, let the engine hum beneath my feet, and whispered to the river the same prayer Mum once taught me. May what is owed return, may what is broken mend may. Truth be last to drown. Dawn failed to arrive quietly. At 04:52, my condo intercom crackled with the doorman's voice, Kun Zara, urgent parcel. Suspicion beat sleep. Downstairs, I found not a courier, but a bouquet of white lotus and a slim envelope marked, From Father. Inside lay a cashier's check for the full restitution, plus 25% my deadline met 13 hours early, and a handwritten note. Forgiveness begins with action. This is attempt 1. The paper trembled between my fingers. Relief and caution wrestled, neither winning. I texted Girawat a photo, stamped funds, verified across it, then forwarded to Dr. Cool cancel broadcast clock well before her 06 Azuro kill switch. One front secured, but wars rarely concede so easily. At 08:15, a torrent of notifications flooded my phone. Social feeds lit with anonymous claims that financial tyrant Zara Anorak shutters family startup hundreds, may lose jobs. Hashtags multiplied like mold hadn't greedy sister hadn't saved Nomad Nest. The campaign reeked of paid bots. Vit's digital fingerprints. I called Lila. She answered amid kitchen clatter. Staff salaries hit their accounts this morning, she said, voice steady. Real employees know who signed the payroll. Good, but optics still mattered. I drafted a concise statement. Nomad Nest remains open under new interim management. No job losses, zero debt. My role is auditor, not tyrant. Lila posted it with transparent financial snapshots. Sunlight disinfects faster than lawyers. By noon, I was neck-deep in transfer receipts ensuring each bot cleared escrow. That's when Somchai, my managing partner, rang. Boardrooms erupting. Someone emailed them a dossier alleging you laundered money through the bar. I laughed bitter. Who signed the dossier anonymous, but the metadata traces to a cafe Wi-Fi on Sukhumvit? I'll stall. Sukhumvit Vit's hunting ground. I pinged Girawat. Within minutes, he traced the IP to a laptop rented using a forged passport photo that looked suspiciously like Caleb in glasses. Amateur hour. Still smoke could invite regulators. We needed fire breaks. I arranged an emergency press call at the bar itself, betting transparency against rumor. At 15 Huzura, the sun hammered the rooftop as I faced a half circle of journalists, Lila at my side, legal documents projected on a smart screen behind us. I walked them through the timeline withdrawals, shell company restitution, leaving out only the probate grenade still holstered. Then I invited questions. One reporter asked if family reconciliation was possible. I answered. Truthfully, reconciliation is a process, not a press headline. Today's priority is ethical business. Cameras clicked like cicadas. Midway through, a crash echoed from the stairwell. Caleb burst onto the deck, hair wild eyes bloodshot. He shouted, "Don't listen! She extorted us!" Two security guards followed breathless. Lila instinctively stepped between us, koi tattoos flexing. I raised a palm to the guards. Let him speak. Caleb ranted about sibling betrayal, ignoring the spreadsheets glowing behind me. A seasoned journalist interrupted, pointing to the projection. Your signature appears here approving the transfers. Care to clarify? Caleb's fury deflated. He spun, stormed off. Cameras caught everything. Sometimes the best PR is your opponent's meltdown. After the reporters dispersed, Lila and I exhaled twin gusts of exhaustion. Then her phone rang. She listened, face tightening. Stockroom fire alarm sprinklers triggered. We sprinted downstairs. Acrid smoke mingled with sanitizer. A small blaze snuffed fast but deliberate oil rags piled near outlets. Classic arson tell. Fire captain confirmed suspicion. Insurance would cover damage, yet danger had spoken in sparks. Evening dragged me back to Mum's teal house for a final knot. Dad waited alone on the porch, no SUV, no entourage. He looked smaller than clouds. Inside we sat among dust motes and old tin fans. He slid a second envelope toward me, deed of his condo, unencumbered. Security for whatever bridge is left, he said. I pushed it back. Keep your roof. What I want can't be notarized. We talked halting raw. He admitted envy of my self-reliance, confessed that Fiona's ambitions blurred his judgment. I spoke of birthdays spent staring at empty chairs. Words macerated years of silence. Grief tasted metallic but strangely nourishing. When mosquitoes buzzed in the rafters, we had not forgiven yet. The ledger had new entries on both sides. That was enough for now. On my way out the garden gate, headlights sliced the lane. Vit's sedan idled windows down. He offered a cigarette. I declined. He studied me, amusement and warning braided in his gaze. Well played. But tides shift. I replied, I surf. He smiled, drove off. The unspoken truce he'd lost this round, but future boards could reset. I made a mental note to monitor his next venture. Knowledge beats paranoia. Back in the city, midnight neon flickered across rain-slick pavement. My inbox pinged. Somchai forwarded an internal vote board unanimously rejected the laundering allegation, praising my exemplary crisis handling. I grinned, filed the accolade under unexpected perks. Before sleep, I opened the probate folder one more time. Mum's elegant signature whispered from the page, a reminder that legacies are contracts between past and future, enforced by whichever descendants stay stubborn enough. I saved digital copies off-site, then sealed the original in a bank vault scheduled for tomorrow. Lying in the dark, I considered the weak theft revealed rooftop showdown, riverfront ultimatum restitution, smear campaigns, arson, fragile olive branches. It felt less like victory, more like the end of a seismic swarm. Aftershocks would keep humming, but foundations had held. My phone lit with a final text from Lila Bar packed tonight. Staff smiling again. Told them it's your doing. Thanks, I typed back. Their paychecks thanked them first. Keep the nest honest. Hit send, let fatigue roll in. As sleep finally tugged me under, Mum's prayer drifted across the threshold of dreams. May what is owed return. May what is broken, mend, may truth be last to drown. Tonight at least, truth floated. Morning storm clouds rolled over Bangkok like bruises drenching rooftops by the time I reached the office. Somchai called me into glass conference room 9. 2 stern men in navy suits waited anti-corruption investigators from the Ministry of Finance. Someone had filed a petition alleging that Nomad Nest still laundered VIP gambling money. The signature block read Concerned Citizen. I pictured Vit's amused eyes behind the cigarette. The officers requested full accounting access. I granted it on the spot and slid across 3 USB drives, staff rosters, vendor trails, escrow receipts. Their surprise was palpable. Guilty parties seldom volunteer evidence. One officer, Kun Chatri, muttered, "If only every business kept books this clean." They departed promising routine follow-up. A new front, but one I had already fortified. By lunch, Lila forwarded CCTV stills from the bar's burnt stockroom. Grainy yet unmistakable Caleb entering with a bag exiting lighter. My stomach nodded self-sabotage born of desperation. We filed the footage in a secure folder marked Arson Exhibit Pending. I told Lila to lock the physical copy off-site and change all passcodes. Betrayal breeds aftershocks. Mid-afternoon, Dad texted family dinner at 8, Fiona cooking. Just us. Part of me wanted to ignore yet another olive branch. Another part knew healing demands proximity. I agreed with a caveat: neutral restaurant, public eyes. He accepted. At 1600 hours, my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Girawat Offshore Sweep Complete. Vit funneled 12 million baht to Macau accounts yesterday, bounced by freeze. He's courting outside investors. Recommending immediate civil injunction extension, I authorized filing. This tug of war had become chess. Every pawn mattered. Traffic snarled Sukhumvit red by dusk. The restaurant Dad chose sat beside a temple, its windows framing quiet monks at evening chants. Inside, candlelight flickered over a table already set. Fiona greeted me with a stiff smile. Caleb occupied the far seat, eyes swollen, a bandage crossing one knuckle, consequence of doors punched or deals collapsing. Dad poured tea, hands shaking just enough to rattle porcelain. Conversation began brittle weather restaurant decor before cracking open. Dad announced they had repaid my funds in full and would step back from any business ventures until family trust regrew. Fiona placed a white envelope in front of me, a notarized resignation letter from Nomad Nest, her signature and Caleb's. She whispered, "I realize we mistook ambition for love." I searched her face for irony, found only fatigue. Caleb remained silent, staring at steam rising from his cup like an omen he couldn't read. I produced a slim folder, conditional withdrawal of criminal complaints, pending formal apology and restorative justice hours at a legal aid clinic Mum once supported. Dad read the clause, exhaled relief. Fiona nodded. Caleb's jaw clenched, yet even he sensed the trapdoors around refusal. With hesitant pen strokes, he initialed each page. Deal struck, but peace remained fragile. Walking out, Caleb lagged behind, a voice low, "You win." Happy I met his glare. Justice isn't scoreboard. Fix yourself, that's the only victory left. He looked away, blinking water from his lashes that might have been rain. Back home, rain hammered a balcony glass. I opened the resignation envelope again, checked every comma. Authentic. I filed digital scans, then drafted an email to the investigators attaching resignation deeds, CCTV stills and audit logs, proactive transparency beats, reactive panic, sent. A ping sounded Somchai emailing board minutes. My prompt cooperation impressed the ministry. They invited me to present on best auditing practices. Small flame of pride warmed chest. I forwarded invite to Lila with note, "Co-present? You ran half these controls." Her reply shot back in seconds. Honored? And the staff finally agreed on a new motto, "Nest honest, fly far." I smiled despite fatigue. Near midnight, an unknown number rang. "Vit." I let it go to voicemail. His message arrived smooth baritone, "Storms rolling your way. Check tomorrow's headlines." No specifics, just menace measured in syllables. I archived the audio labeled Threat 2. Sleep came shallow, filled with buildings flooding in neon water. At Bo 3:30, phone buzzed a news alert about leaked footage of me blackmailing brother for equity. The clip, clearly doctored, spliced my rooftop ultimatum with Caleb's rant audio warped. Hashtag fires reignited. I called Dr. Cool. She answered caffeinated, as always. Saw it. Editing tells. Background lighting shifts mid-sentence. I'm drafting debunk thread. By dawn, her analysis trended higher than the fake clip. Bots drowned under genuine outrage at manipulation. Vit's storm fizzled on takeoff. Yet the assault clarified my next move finished this war publicly. I scheduled a shareholder meeting livestream for Friday night digital stage where every document, apology, and plan would sit under lights. Lila prepped slides. Staff filmed a behind-the-scenes montage of honest work, optimistic faces. Truth markets itself when given airtime. Friday arrived bright as polished steel. The rooftop thrummed with nervous energy but also pride. At 1900 hours, the livestream began, watched by investors, patrons, regulators. I narrated the journey, betrayal, restitution reforms, closing with a pledge. 50% of my recovered funds would seed a foundation in Mum's name, granting scholarships to girls studying forensic accounting. Applause erupted across comment feeds. Lila announced Nomad Nest's first audited quarterly profit projection, modest yet untarnished. Midstream, a chat account named Vitesse tried flooding comments with legal threats. Moderators silenced him. Powerless in sunlight, he vanished. After cameras dimmed, staff popped ginger ale in lieu of champagne. I gazed at the skyline where storm clouds once loomed. Tonight, they scattered edges pink with peace. Dad texted a single word, proud. Not repair, but scaffold. Later, locking up Lila, handed me a folder staff had signed, a thank you card shaped like a lantern. Inside, they tucked a keychain tiny silver abacus. For the woman who balanced more than books, the inscription read, "Emotion rose like tide." I swallowed it down, smiled. As I walked onto the empty street, humid air smelled of jasmine and distant rain. Phone buzzed, Girowatt humor intact. Detectives raided Vit's condo. Evidence bagged. He's on a no-fly list. Heart steadied. Final piece sliding home. I crossed the river on a night ferry, lantern lights bobbing beside the boat. I opened Mum's prayer one last time, whispered into wind may, "What is owed return, may what is broken mend may, truth be, last to drown." Water carried the words away, but their echo settled quiet inside me. Tomorrow, part 6 would begin. Not war, not revenge, but something rarer, rebuilding on cleared ground. The Monday after the livestream, the city woke to headlines. Money launder kingpin arrested at Don Wang sibling fraud saga. Ends in scholarships, Nomad Nest sets new code for ethical nightlife. Even the gossip columns framed the story as redemption, not scandal. I read every article once, then shut the browser. Victory tastes best when served sparingly. At work, Somchai met me at the elevator, eyes gleaming like he'd hedged the perfect currency trade. Ministry panel confirmed they want you to design a national auditing curriculum. I felt a ripple of pride but asked for 2 weeks respite. He granted it without bargaining, perhaps fearful I'd redline the whole firm if pushed. Those 2 weeks I spent untangling lives. First order formal launch of the Anorak Cool Foundation, named for Mum and Dr. Cool, who had become both mentor and co-conspirator for integrity. 50% of my recovered funds seeded the trust. A tech investor moved by the livestream matched the amount overnight. Applications from young women studying forensic accounting flooded our inbox before the website finished loading its hero image. Hope, it seems, travels faster than fiber optic. Second order rebuilding the bar's soul. Lila and I tore down the influencer bait neon, replacing it with artisan lamps made by Chiang Mai potters. The cocktail menu lost its NFT gimmicks and gained local herbs and zero-waste syrups. Staff wages rose 10% funded by dropping pretentious bottle service tiers. On opening night of the rebranded Lantern Nest, her choice of name, customers queued down the stairwell, drawn less by hype than by curiosity about a place that had publicly burned grime off its own floorboards. I worked the door with a handheld clicker, heart drumming each time the number ticked higher. Transparency, it turns out, sells more seats than mystery. Third order family, the hardest ledger. Caleb began his restorative justice hours at the legal aid clinic looking like a sulking tourist. Yet within days, he was teaching neighborhood kids basic spreadsheet skills, all those coding camps finally worth something. One afternoon, he texted me a photo of children holding up color-coded budget charts and wrote simply, "I get it now." I taped the image to my fridge next to Mum's last birthday card. Fiona volunteered at a women's shelter, trading corporate polish for community humility. She sent me recipes for cheaper, healthier staff meals, her language of apology. Dad and I met every Sunday at a riverside stall for ginger tea. No agenda, just conversation that edged from careful to comfortable. He never again called me pumpkin. He tried Zara, stumbled, landed on Za, half new, half familiar, like our relationship. Meanwhile, Vit's empire crumbled under forensic scrutiny. Without clean ledgers, banks froze asset after asset. He attempted one last gambit, offering to testify against bigger fish in exchange for leniency. Prosecutors considered, then declined. Apparently nobody enjoys a witness whose loyalty changes with barometric pressure. He received a 5-year sentence and an order to repay 10 million baht in tax arrears. I did not attend the hearing. Some victories are healthier savored in absence. Rainy season tapered, and with it the adrenaline that had fueled my every dawn. One quiet evening, I walked the sky park that curves over the Chao Phraya city lights flickering like mirrored constellations below. From the bridge, I could see Lantern Nest's rooftop now pulsing warm amber instead of nightclub purple. Music drifted faintly, acoustic guitar, soft laughter. Not mine anymore, yet partly mine forever. A notification buzzed Lila's message, quarterly audit finished. 0 discrepancies. She attached a photo of the silver abacus keychain now hanging behind the bar. I typed back, keep counting, truth loves a tally. Another ping, Caleb. First scholarship paid. Girl named Pin just started at Thammasat. She reminds me of you. I smiled, sending thumbs up and a virtual high five. Bridges slowly weight-tested were holding. As I left the park, lantern vendors prepared for a temple festival. I bought one plain rice paper sphere scribbled, Mum's Prayer in black ink. May what is owed return may, what is broken mend, may truth be last to drown. I set the lantern afloat on river breeze, watching it rise until Bangkok swallowed it among office towers and apartment blocks, new constellations charted by ordinary hands. Walking home, I realized the story the city had devoured. The scandal, the courtroom drama, the rooftop spectacle was only chapter 1. The deeper narrative, the quieter one, unfurled in monthly audit logs and scholarships signed in Sunday teas, shared without apology. Justice had been the storm surge. Rebuilding would be the tide that kept rolling in, patient, ceaseless, reshaping every shoreline it kissed. At my door, I paused, key poised, listening to the night. No sirens, no hostile knocks, no heart galloping. Just cicadas, distant river traffic pages turning somewhere inside the world. I unlocked, stepped through, and closed the door behind the past.